meeting they will be having with the federal government today. We will record that they give the federal government 1 month to be able to rectify the hardship in the country in regards to the removal of the fuel subsidy. And they are supposed to have a meeting today, which they are threatening to actually boycott that. So we'll just keep our fingers closed to see what will emerge after all of this. I am Stella Elisha Dasham. The program is the Dailies, and I'll be doing the program together with Rachel Tansey. Good morning, Rachel.
Morning, Sarah.
How was the weekend?
It was fine. How was yours?
Mine was great. Thank you so much. And to our viewers at home, please do remember to, drop your comment on our Facebook and YouTube, as we'll be live there. So you can do well to be part of the conversation by dropping your views there. And we will go straight into the papers, starting with Nigerian Tribune.
On Nigerian Tribune, boat with over 80 passengers capsizes in Taraba State. You can find details on page 26. NADECO to Tinubu implement APC El-Rufai recommendations on restructuring and power devolution. You can find more details on page 23. Or your government appeals shown off Obonwoshaw's sack. You can find more details on page 27. Reps move to give legal backing to artisanal petroleum refiners. CNG vehicles, federal government inaugurates Lagos pilot conversion centers. You can find details on page 16. The big story on the paper, 15-point memorandum of understanding implementation. NLC threatens boycott of meeting with federal government, warns labor minister not to attend, to shut down economic activities in Imo November 1st over alleged labor maltreatment. You can find details of the big story on page 5. Tinubu governors orders mourn as Ohinoyi of Ebiriland dies at 95. Supreme Court judgment distraction over Tinubu tells German Chancellor. 2 men suffocate inside diesel tank in Kano State. You can find details on page 27. I directed Kyari Malami to fight $15 billion payment to PNID. A statement coming from Buhari says, had Nigeria lost, it would have required schools not to be built, nurses not to be trained, roads not to be repaired. Accuses ex-British Minister Patel of demanding payment. You can find more details on page 5, and that's all news on Nigerian Tribune.
All right, let's take a look at the leadership newspaper, where we have Fidelity Bank boosts Nigeria's non-oil export with the FITCC Houston. You can find more of that story on page 30. Also, we are having other stories here concerning fact checks, where we have what was Hadiza's response to Amechi's claim against her. You want to know that? You can do well to read that inside the paper. NDLEA arrests 2 drug traffickers, and that happened in Abuja Airport. You can find more detail of that story on page 2 of the leadership newspaper. Other story on the paper here we have says Nigeria loses billions of naira to 70 Lagos Abuja checkpoints. You can start reading the story on the front page and continue on page 7. And also we're having again federal government labor meet on palliatives today. Detail of that can be found on page 4. 14 just still to replace Idomo as amnesty boss. You can find more inside the paper. And still on Taraba boat mishap, 15 bodies recovered, others missing. More detail found on page 7. The issue of the Israel-Hamas war death toll hit 9,400 in Gaza. You can find more of that on page 6. Female FUT lecturer murdered in Mina. This is a sad one. We hope the police will be able to probe and find out what actually happened. The big story here says depletion of justice. CNG, that's the Chief Justice of Nigeria, moves to fill 11 Supreme Court vacancies, with the rider NUC may pick from among the 10 Court of Appeal justices from 6 North Central and then Southeast slots. And also another writer here say Apex Court needs full list of 21 justices. You can find more detail of that story. We have a picture story here of the Minister of FCT, Yesom Weekend, also with the Chancellor on the arrival of his arrival in the presidential wing of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport yesterday. You can do well to find more detail of what that meeting is all about, and that's all on the leadership newspaper.
On the Nation newspaper, explosion rocks Rivers House of Assembly complex. Illegal fishing a threat to blue economy. The writer saying $600 million lost annually. You can find more details on page 21. Losing P&ID case would have cost Nigeria $15 billion, says Buhari. Boat with 100 on board capsizes in Taraba State. You can find details on page 6. Naira pressure eases on $10 billion forex inflows prospect. You can find details on page 4. The big story on the paper, business obstacles to go. Tinubu assures investors with Supreme Court verdict no more distractions. President holds German Chancellor. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 5. NNPCL withholds 13.27 trillion naira from FAAC. NLC threatens boycott of today's review meeting with the federal government. Court stops Labour's Occupy Imo plan. And at the downside of the paper, why modular refinery operators can access bank loans. You can find why they can't have access to bank loans on page 6, and that's all news on the Nation newspaper.
On the Voice of Liberty, federal government wants urgent resolution of Israel-Hamas conflict. Detail of that story can be found in the paper. And on the issue of rule of law index, Nigeria ranked 120 out of 142 countries that actually observe the rule of law. And I think this is a very bad figure, if you will ask me. And I think Richard is high time we do something about the issue of rule of law. You know, we've kept talking about the fact that in Nigeria, it seems like we practice the rule of man and not the rule of law, because it seems certain people get away with the law and certain people cannot get away with the law. We've seen where certain people have immunity to the law and others do not have immunity to the law. And I think it's really important looking at this index that we are 120 out of 142. So that means we just have about 22 countries that we are yet to go down. And if we continue on the pace where we are, Richard, it's a matter of time we will keep going backward. If only we sit up, then we'll be able to move forward and then be able to say maybe possibly we'll keep reducing. So I'm looking forward to seeing that we practice the rule of law. I mean, throughout this weekend and down from when we had the judgment coming from the Supreme Court, a lot of things kept coming up, even from the retired Chief Justice that retired, Justice Musa, when he retired. A lot of things, he opened the can of worms, saying the fact that there is corruption in the judiciary, and then it's high time something is being done. If the common man can no longer have faith in the judicial system, so what else can the common man do? Who else or where else can he run to? Because eventually then when they're saying go to the court, you know that okay, when I go to court, justice will be served. But over the years we've seen that somehow people tend to beat around the rule of law, and then we're seeing certain people getting away with it. So looking at this figure, until we are actually practicing it properly as we should be, I'm looking forward to seeing when we get to that number where we are being ranked as the best country when it comes to practicing the rule of law.
And so then everything we keep seeing corruption playing even in our judiciary, and then it's not surprising. Even with the way we have our lawmakers, we have lawyers, we have judges, we have courts, twisting the law, you just know that there is a fault somewhere. It's just unfortunate that you can't for sure point exactly where the problem is. You can just speculate, assume, but you know that a lot is not making sense because it's not adding up the way it should add up. It is very unfortunate. We don't need anybody to tell us that there's corruption even in the judiciary system of the country for you to know that there is, because there are certain things that shouldn't even play out and have. There are certain things that have been manipulated to the extent that nobody knows what is even the right thing anymore. It's very, very unfortunate. And then we just hope that we wake up to a country one day that such doesn't exist anymore. It's almost like everybody is out for their stomach, because it's not all about power anymore. It's about hunger, because when we talk about corruption in Nigeria, it goes to more about money. You know, when you pay, you bribe your way out of certain things. And if there is corruption in the judiciary, it all revolves around bribery. And it's unfortunate that we have people in the position to give justice to the poor, being or to be the ones giving verdicts against such are into it, then you know, of course, there's no way to run to. But there can be a flushing of the system eventually if we are willing to and ready to do it. And then hopefully we'll wake up one day to a Nigeria that the system has been flushed clean, and then we can have a system that people can trust in. But the more things are unfolding in the country, we just have a system that you can't trust. It's very unfortunate, but that one day we can definitely get to that position.
You know, Rachel, you remember when I was saying that a lot of people are coming up to say maybe we need to amend our constitution, maybe we need to amend most of the act, left, right, and center. And I said, if you look at all of this, of some of these our constitution, there's nothing wrong with it. But there's something wrong with the people that are supposed to upheld that. A lot of time we see people twisting it to suit them. If it's going to suit me, I twist it. But if it's not going to suit me, and then I begin to allow it to play the way it should be. So we look forward to seeing more of that being played out. Still on the Voice of Liberty, other stories on the front page, we have one killed as bandit abducted Zamfara monarch and 5 others. More detail of that story can be found in the paper. Marketers hint at 800 naira petrol price amid surging landing costs worsening forex constraint. Marketers of petroleum products in Nigeria have hinted that the pump price of petrol in the country could rise further to between 700 and 800 naira per litre, up from the current 550 naira to 617 naira per litre. So this is telling people to brace up for the worst is coming, where we hope to see what will turn out of all of this. And then on the issue of Taraba, still it's making it on most of our papers, many missing as boat carrying over 100 passengers capsized. Very sad one. Tinubu has breached federal character. This is coming from Abarebe. You can find more of what he meant by that. And on the maritime security, IMB freaked over piracy surge in Gulf of Guinea. You can find more inside the paper. Last story on the paper, we have Tinubu allies allege elimination, emergence of new cabal in the villa. There was a time we heard that during when El-Rufai was talking about that in the cabal of Buhari. Now we are having another issue of cabal in the villa for Tinubu. Well, we keep our fingers crossed and hope you grab the paper to read more detail of what all of the stories means.
On New Telegraph, 13% derivation. Oil producing states receive 469.7 billion naira. Diaspora remittance, Nigeria falls behind Egypt with $20.1 billion. You can find details on page 17. PDP APC biker over a daily case 100 billion naira infrastructure project. PDP APC bicker over a daily case 100 billion naira infrastructure project. You can find details on page 28. Workers' right violation, NLC to shut down economic activities in Imo on Wednesday. NNPP crisis, Southeast Esco ratifies Kwankwaso's expulsion. End of an era as King Ado Ibrahim dies at 95. The big story on the paper, Government of National Unity. Opposition's conduct after Supreme Court verdict will determine Tinubu's decision. A statement coming from Marafa. APC petition to NBA confirmation of planned intimidation, harassment of our leaders. A statement coming from Labour Party. Allow Tinubu to concentrate. Olubadan pleads with opposition. You can find details of the big story on page 2, 3, and 31. Fidelity Bank, Arizin Bank, John Vance seal $40 million cocoa export deal. Many fared dead as boat with over 100 passengers capsizes in Taraba. Federal government to import 1 billion naira equipment to fix Echo Bridge. You can find details on page 29. Distraction over Tinubu tells German Chancellor. Legislative oversight functions can't work without adequate funding. Coming from NLIDS Director General, you can find details on page 4. And then we have a study that says extended sitting time might be aging brain faster. So let's reduce how long we sit, maybe walk around, run, but just reduce how much long you take sitting down. You can find more details on page 26. We have a picture story where we can see the president and the German Chancellor Olaf, and that's all the news on New Telegraph.
On the Guardian newspaper, unconstitutional for politicians to be INEC wrecked. You can find more of that story on page 2. Also, we have on Oshun APC PDP BK over Adeleke's 100 billion naira infrastructure agenda. We will remember he said that officials will not be traveling, public officials will not be traveling out of the country because of this 100 billion infrastructure agenda that he have. Also, we have the big story here that say why proof of 11.3 trillion naira refineries maintenance costs will end futile. Now, people are giving reason why this will end. And you remember, Rachel, when we were talking about the issue of this, because Senate brought up this last week, I think, about probing into
Yes.
11.3, and you and I were saying, why do we pump money into something that over the years have not been giving us anything? And we're talking about this 11.3 trillion naira is coming from 10 years. That's from 2010 to 2020. And then let's not even talk about from 2020 till date, how much
Yeah.
was being pumped into that place. And I was wondering, and I asked a question looking at some of the refineries that we have, the two in Port and then the one in Warri and then in Kaduna. And then I asked, what are the people that are working here? How comes this thing is not working for the past 10 years? So people are saying that this is going to end like every other thing that we've been proving, and then at the end of the day, there's no result coming out of it. It's just papers. And then you remember we said we hope that this group will go beyond just a committee being set up giving papers. We need the people that were being given that money should be brought to book, and it still takes us back to the rule of law. Regardless of who you are, yes, we know that Senate have summoned both the past and present NNPCL workers, but I think it is imperative that we have every other person being probed. If you may, you need to give us back that money. We are rejoicing about a PNID that we can use it for certain infrastructures in the country. How about this 11.3 trillion naira that was being pumped, and then we cannot even give account of what was being used for it? So let's just see. We just hope that this report will be possibly, maybe they will be able to come up with something, and then
Maybe
they will prove them wrong that actually this will be a different one. So our fingers are crossed, but I believe that Nigerians want, beyond all of this being on the papers, that the people who actually were being given that money will be probed, and then they will be brought to book at the end of the day.
Say like this, when you look at the time frame, it's really long for you not to probe certain things, and it doesn't make sense. This is where we look at a government that is not serious about work, Sele. This is where we've seen that we have been missing it a lot in leadership. What happens to accountability and transparency? You can't give 1 trillion naira, for example, for a month, for a work that is supposed to take 6 months, for example. 6 months comes and go, and you don't see the result of the work, and then you say nothing about it. The following year you give another 3 trillion naira, for example. The work is supposed to be done, this certain aspect or area of the refinery or whatever, because I want to believe that there's just so much until it's not for one thing. Perhaps a report came in that this needs to be fixed in the refinery. Money was released for it. Tomorrow, okay, this is no longer functioning. It needs renewal. Money was being given for it. Tomorrow, okay, we need to change all of this and all of that. I believe that this is how the money kept on going or being allocated to these different things that needs to be fixed in this refinery, and then years goes by and it hasn't been checked. Nobody have said anything about it. There wasn't accountability, there wasn't supervision, there wasn't supervision to be sure that these things were done as it is. And then now 10 years down the road, many NNPCL bosses coming and going, many administrations changing within a short period of time, and you want to start digging into something that should have been dug a long time ago, there and then you wonder, the people that slept on the job and refuse to do the supervision to make sure, well, who is to be blamed now? Is it the people that were supposed to make sure that this money was sunk into these refineries and the work wasn't done at that time? Or is it the person that didn't work, perhaps? Because you don't even know exactly where to start pointing the fingers as it is now concerning this probe and concerning the fixing of the refinery. Is it the contractors we are going to go to? Is it the government? Is it the NNP? Is everybody inclusive? And then and that's why I said, in as much as the lawmakers might think they're doing Nigerians a favor by bringing this to the surface, the damage has been done. Not like it can't be fixed, not like the probe can't be and answers cannot be found. No, but you know what, this 11 trillion naira is gone, and for sure it has set us backward in a lot of way, and the probe might just go on. I can come out and say, as the NNPCL boss, as at 2012, when I was given this money, I fixed it. If the following NNPCL boss came and did not continue then, or it spoiled after I left, I don't care anymore. And that is how the beating around the bush will go on concerning this probe, because who would you accuse and who would agree to take the blame for something that have lingered for so long? So yes, I believe that these are all lessons learned, that subsequently, as the federal government is planning on sinking money into fixing this refinery, we will see accountability, we will see transparency, we will see proper supervision, and we will see questions being asked and demanded for answers, even if the answers are not coming, and to make sure that this job, when the money is being given, is being done, because we need to get to that point in this economy, because if we don't, we're just going to keep suffering as long as we are going to be importing oil. The government needs to wake up and say Nigeria needs to consume the petrol we make on our soil, or else everybody is going to die of hunger, because we're literally moving to that kind of position whether we like it or not. So I just hope that the government wakes up and do the needful.
Just like you said, Richard, this is a question of integrity. And we hope that this government is hoping to change the narrative or whatever the thing that is going on. And if you ask me, I can see corruption here, because you gave a work and you never went back to check if that work was being done. You never asked for receipts of things that were being done, even though I believe that some people, if they are bent on being corrupt, they will be corrupt, because they will forge receipts and give you and tell you that this was done. But believe you me, Rachel, if only when you give a contract you go back to check. And I'm going beyond the refineries, even to our roads, our schools, and so we've heard where contractors are being given work and then they don't do it, and then money has already been dispersed for a particular thing to be done. So I just hope that beyond words, because right now this will tell the integrity of this present administration, starting from the ministers, whoever is the minister of petroleum, whether state or even the federal level. We need to see you put in the work. Don't just tell us, because Richard, you agree with me that there are certain ministers that ever since they were being sworn in, we've not had anything. We don't even know what their plans are for Nigeria. A lot of them are quiet. Very few people are actually outspoken about the plans they have for the economy. So let's just say that they're actually buying time. They're trying to adjust. Believe you me, from January, Richard, Nigerians will demand for answers. Because back where those days where you do certain things and Nigerians are quiet about it, a lot of people have actually smelled the coffee and they know that things are not working well in Nigeria. And it's high time we wake up. And believe you me, I don't even think that Nigerians are willing to wait for it to even spend 4 years again. In fact, 1 year, 2 years is enough, because 100 days is what mostly are being used to measure whether you are capable or not. The first 100 days enough is what were you able to do. So we are hoping to see that these refineries, I mean, I don't know what will happen if the money will return back, because talking about 11.3 trillion naira, it's a huge amount of money. 250 to each of those refineries, 250 million is a huge amount of money, Rachel. So we hope something will be done about that. Still on the Guardian newspaper, we have energy challenges undermining Nigerians' development. Tinubu admits presently there's an energy summit happening in Rwanda. We hope Nigerians will be active there to see how we can actually convert our energy to gas, and then so that we'll be able to have constant power supply in the country. The imperative of a good road infrastructure, you can find that editorial on page 2. Also, we have the issue of the P&ID, importance of following legal process in dispute resolution, coming from Buhari. APC risks losing future polls with questionable candidates, says Don. You want to know what he meant by that? You can do well to find that story on page 3, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On the Matrix newspaper, Nigeria, Germany reiterate commitment to democratic rule in Africa. City outclassed United 3-0 in Manchester Derby. You can find details on page 3. Indume defense purchase of SUVs for National Assembly members says it's not a new thing. Buhari opens up on $11 billion PNID case, describes it as attempted heist of historic proportion against Nigeria. would have stolen one-third of Nigeria's foreign reserves. Late Abakari Malami's role in landmark case explained. You can find more details on page 2. Expert tax federal government on measures to discourage new loans. Why we can't sell BUA cement at 3,500 naira coming from retailers. Max Exodus hits PDP in Ebonyi. Senator Ogba orders chieftain Dom party. More details can be found on page 10. Introduction of CNG buses will crash cost of CNG to 230 naira per kg. Federal government assures Nigerians. NLC Labour Ministers face-off worsens as OPS threatens boycott of meeting with the federal government, and that's all the news on the Matrix newspaper.
Let's take a look at the Vanguard newspaper. Minister Foreign Mission roll over return dates. You can find that on page 8. Tinubu to German leader, we want to change weak economic narratives. More detail found on page 25. And we have a special report that says NAS and INEC, judiciary and future elections. You want to know what that means about the card readers, the server, the beavers and the RF. You can find more of that special report on page 14. Fidelity Bank boosts Nigerian non-oil export with FITCC Houston. More of that found on page 9. The big story. NLC, TUC, NECA to federal government. Halt fall in Naira value. Asks the federal government to take urgent action to stabilize the currency. And also we are having NLC threaten action to compel the government to prioritize secure of rescue of Naira and the economy if. And then we have TUC blames the IMF and the World Bank. And then we have the free fall of Naira worrisome coming from NECA. You can find more of that story on page 5. Or your government files appeal against removal of zone. You can find that on page 10. Also, we have net foreign exchange inflow falls to 54% to $7.29 billion in the first half of 2023. Monarch Catholic priest, 4 others abducted in Zamfara and Taraba State. The sad one. Still on the issue of insurgents, you can find our story on page 6. Varsity lecturer killed in Niger State. More of that found also on page 6. We have a column for sports and also another one coming from Lakefa. More of that story can be found inside the paper, and that's all on the Vanguard newspaper.
On Daily Independent, NLC to embark on strike, street protest in Imo November 1st. We have the writer under the story states why it may shun federal government meeting to review subsidy agreement. Serap tax INEC on reforms to secure Nigerians' voting rights. The big story on the paper, fresh CBN Forex market push unsettles speculators and banks. You can start with the details on the front page. Boat capsizes with 100 passengers in Taraba. Buhari list what Nigeria would have lost in the PNID $11 billion case. Catholic priest, 4 others abducted in Taraba. You can find details on page 6. Apabio Kalu lead delegation to brief Tinubu on IPU assembly outcome. Tinubu Abbas Ganduje Mon Ohinoyi of Ibera land. You can find more details on page 7. Still on Daily Independent, Nigeria crawling, but we are changing the narrative. Tinubu tells German Chancellor, says Supreme Court has put pay to distraction from political opponents. It's regrettable how minerals from Nigeria end up in other countries coming from schools. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 29. And at the downside of the paper, thousands raid Gaza, 8 warehouses. Israel widens ground offensive. You can find details on page 6. And that's all the news on Daily Independent.
Alright, before we continue further with the paper analysis, we'd love to take a break at this moment, let you chew the story, what NLC is saying, why the probe for the 11.3 trillion naira for fixing or maintaining of the refinery. A lot of people, according to the guidance, might be futile because they do not see a way out of it. We have quite a number of stories. The president have also met with the German chancellor telling him Nigeria might be crumbling, but he is willing to actually resurrect the Nigerian economy. So when we come back from the break, we will open the lines and then we will hear what your own thoughts are concerning any of the story. Please stay tuned with us.
Hello viewers, my name is Amaka Ocheke. We anchor the program The Living Room right here on Equa TV International.
You are welcome to watch us every Monday.
The Living Room is a very interesting family program where we discuss everything you want to know about family.
Talk about our children's mental health.
Keep watching. Our program is always here 5:30 every Monday. We want you to ask questions, we want you to phone in and drop topics that you want us to talk about, even on our media handle on Facebook. We're there. So keep watching, keep listening. The Living Room.
Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, it's still the Dailies, and we have been looking at a number of stories on the paper, from NLC threatening to boycott the meeting with the federal government today, and they also are staging a protest strike in Imo State. And you know what that means to the state at a time where it's having quite a number of conflicts, or actually unrest there, and then with the election coming up from November 11, that could actually maybe affect it. So we'd love to hear what your own thoughts are. What is your view about what NLC is doing, and also the president meeting with the German chancellor concerning the economy of Nigeria? A number of questions to ask on how Nigeria can become more positive or actually grow as the days goes by. I still have Rachel Tanzan with me in the studio. Thank you so much, Rachel.
You're welcome, Stephen.
All right, our number is displayed on your screen. Please feel free to call us at this moment. Remember, turn down the volume of your TV set, be audible enough, and then try to summarize your point in a minute so other callers can also call in and air their views. But before the calls come in, let's continue with the paper analysis, and I'll be looking at the Punch newspaper. And on the Punch, federal government seeks speedy delivery of Turkish attack helicopters. You can find more of that on page 7. We have challenging PNID fraud save Nigeria $11 billion coming from the former President Buhari. The big story on Forex crisis. The Labour blames the government officials, meets the federal government today with a rider. Politician taste for foreign goods pushing Nigeria to disaster coming from NLC. Labour threatening to boycott talk with government if minister attends, talking about the Minister of Labour and Employment. Other stories here, we have German Chancellor visit Tinubu, give ECOWAS 81 million euro for security and others. You can find more of that story inside the paper. Also, we have importers return to parallel market as Naira rebounds, and Lagos begin demolition of Ikoyi structures near drainage. And also the last story here we have on Israel Hamas, deaths near 10,000. UN warn of civil unrest. You can find more of the stories inside the paper, and that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On Blueprint newspaper, First Bank Nigerian Holdings declares profit before tax of 270 billion naira in 9 months. The big story on the paper, how I fought PNID fraud saved Nigeria $50 billion trauma. A statement coming from former President Buhari says it's an attempted heist of historic proportions. Nigeria won this battle with corruption, but the war is far from over. You can find details on page 6. FUT female lecturer slaughtered in Hamina residence. You can find more details on page 5. City of Houston proclaims October 25th FITCC Day. Boat carrying 100 passengers capsizes in Taraba State. You can find more details on page 15. At the top of the paper, 20 years after avoiding rent obligation, court evicts late sound lawyer's son. This is happening in Lagos. You can find more details on page 15. Ohini Noyi of Ibera land was a father figure to all. The statement coming from Gantu J. Barrow and others. Exercise clean sweep. Army detonates 642 unexploded ordinances in Lagos State. And at the downside of the paper, Serap to INEC take over constitutional reform process or face legal action. Nigerian politicians reluctant to work for genuine improvement. You can find more details on page 6, and that's all the news on Blueprint newspaper.
I mean, if Nigerian politicians are reluctant, I think it's the responsibility of Nigerians to put them on their tool for them to work. And looking at what Serap is saying to INEC to take over constitutional reform process or face legal action, a lot of people are blaming INEC that in the last judgment of the presidential election, I mean, we kept seeing blames being pushed from one side, and then INEC have not come out to actually clarify, or INEC has not been sued for what they did, because a lot of people felt INEC actually, disappointed voters. In fact, right now, it will take time for voters to have confidence again in that institution. And I think it is very important that we make sure that the people who are meant to uphold the laws of this institution do their work. And I think this is a test for INEC right now to recover their integrity again, because this is a question of integrity for me again, Rachel. We keep talking about accountability, we keep talking about being transparent, and INEC actually, you saw last week when we were telling the media to stand up for the ethics that they stand for their profession. I mean, beyond the ethics of professional of journalism, I mean, and beyond journalism or journalists or media being professional in carrying out their responsibility, I think it's the responsibility of this institution to do their work. We saw them saying a lot of people are refusing to work as ACOC staff, and then the reason why they're unable to send certain materials because of the court cases left, right, and center. What I'm hoping with what Serap is actually holding up to INEC, that INEC will do it well. We keep calling their name because they're an institution, and if they said that they are independent, then they should truly prove to Nigerians that they're independent. We do not want to see interference coming from politicians interfering with their responsibility. INEC are supposed to be non-partisan politicians. They are not supposed to have any party. But with the way things are running, Nigerians are being pushed to believe that maybe INEC is taking side with particular political parties. So I think it is high time that INEC proves us wrong. If what we think is wrong, then I think that by their action, Nigerians will tell whether it is true that INEC is not independent or that INEC is independent. So our fingers are crossed. I mean, we are counting, I mean, barely how many days? Less than 2 weeks from now, because it's 11th of, let me say exactly 2 weeks or so.
Yes.
So it's actually a time for INEC to stand up for what they uphold. They also have ethics, so I hope that they will hold on to those ethics and do the right thing.
You know, Stella, I couldn't agree less with the statement coming from Serap, where politicians are reluctant for genuine improvement. You have been a serving senator for 8 years, and there is nothing that has been permanent or consistent in your constituency. Then you are a failure. You have been a governor for 8 years. You had your 2-term, first year, second term, and then there you haven't brought anything into the state that is thriving after you leave it. And we can take this at every level of government, be it the arms and the tiers of government, and then it shows lack of growth, it shows incompetency, and then it shows reluctancy when it comes to improvement and growth in the country. And it's about time we start asking questions. What have you done with the opportunity you were given to be a leader in Nigeria? What law have you brought into the country as a lawmaker? What bill have been passed as a result of you occupying these positions that all the 200 million of Nigerians are benefiting from it, and we can give you thumbs up? What have been implemented as you being in a certain position that will stand whether you are in office or not? Because we are tired of short-lived improvement. We want things that will stay after you have left, because that is what is all about growth. And we are yet to see certain things like that happening. And we can say that for every other place, be it INEC. What are you doing as the Director General of INEC, making sure that things are better in your own term, that the things that needs to be fixed are fixed, and certain glitches or things that are not even supposed to exist are not there in the first place? If you're independent, why are you not acting independent? You are not supposed to even be seen with any political any political candidate, aside from when it is an official duty and it ends there. But we know what happened during election, post and pre-elections and all of that, and it's really sad in this country. So much needs to be done, and I just hope that we get to that point that people are actually really willing to do
All right,
the
let's take
work.
this call. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
For the dailies. This very one that we are discussing about, particularly the issue of election, we know that INEC has said it will take the grace of God for the masses to build confidence in INEC again. Because what they have promised, even the Supreme Court affirmed that INEC has no law to guide them. So knowing that even 25% that INEC brought in Abuja, the transmissions of the results, Supreme Court affirmed that there's nothing like that. To the masses, that's what they believe in. So today, if INEC say it's going to do election, it simply means that it's either do or die. Whoever grab it is the one that will have it. So how would you have an anchor that people are going to serve there? They are children of the common man who has nothing to, for them, they have nothing to lose. For us, we will lose our brothers and sisters who will go for this. And having known that everybody now knows that in the governorship election, if who gets what can take it. If you have the power to kill and do whatever, and hence you get it, you are the one who have it. So how would I put my life now to say that I'm going to be an alcohol to go and conduct election? These are the issues that are there, they are preparing us. Look at the issue of insecurity. It's increasing daily. We are through from where, for example, kidnapping from one end to another. The credits are being kidnapped, people are being kidnapped, and government is dormant. Nothing is happening about it. Who will now say, yes, I want to go and do an election where you know very well that your life is at risk? Thank you very much, my brother. We just pray for the Nigeria that God will help us. Otherwise, things are declining day by day. And that is very unfortunate for us as a nation. Thank you. And the economy is getting worse and worse. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We believe that the relevant authority, INEC, is listening to what Nigerians have to say. So I think it's left to INEC to win the trust of Nigerians again, because this is a question of trust and also integrity. Let's take a look at this day newspaper where we have 15-point agreement. NLC wants Minister of Labour excluded from today's meeting with the federal government. Insists Wednesday protests in Imo will hold, even though the court have stopped them from that, but they are insisting. So you can read more detail of that story inside the paper. And on subsidy removal, federal government target 1 million gas-powered vehicles by 2027. Still on this day, we are having another story here that says Rivers Assembly set ablaze over alleged move to impeach Governor Fubara. You can find that on page 42. And also we have Tinubu, Atiku, Baru, Northern Governors, Gandoji, Bilayi, Ajaka, others Mon Uyuyi of Ibiraland. You can find more of that story inside the paper. And coming from Tinubu, we are set to change the narrative surrounding Nigeria's economy, with the rider reiterates with Supreme Court affirmation of his election, no more distractions. So initially the distraction was with the court. Right now that they're done with the court cases, he can focus and also do the best for Nigeria. Also, we are having coming from Adeleke, he said Oshun to get 5 flyovers, 45 roads from the 100 billion naira infrastructure plan, reason why he's stopping his public officers from leaving the country. We have the picture story where we can see the German Chancellor with the President, while they were having some talks about the economy. You can do well to grab the paper and read more detail of any other story that is of interest to you.
On Daily Sun newspaper, concerns over economy rise, CBN goes after erring banks. MAN, OPS, others lament rise in inflation and foreign exchange scarcity. Fidelity Bank signs $40 million cocoa export deal with Afrexim Bank. John Vance Industry boosts Nigeria's non-oil export. You can continue with the details on page 25. Federal government moves to facilitate speedy delivery.
All right, let's take this call. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Hello,
Good
good
morning.
morning, sir. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello.
What's your name? Where are you calling
Hello.
from?
Please, what I want to comment about is this. The way our judiciary is now, we have already known that if you go to court, you won't get any good answer. So, I don't know. We only pray to God to help us for this country because the way things are going on, even if you vote, your vote is not count. If you go to court, court will just do, business as usual. So all I know is that one day that God will intervene for us. That is the only thing.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, God will intervene for us one day. Said it. Still on Daily Sun newspaper, federal government moves to facilitate speedy delivery of attack helicopters to the Nigerian Air Force. IPOP to federal government remove terrorism tag on us. Tinubu won battle but must work hard to win war. Statement coming from mascot Uzo Kalu. Federal government Labour meet over fuel subsidy agreement. Union vow to shun any parley with along. Court bars NLC from going on strike protesting in Imo State. President Kalu ACF others mourn as Ohino Yi of Ibira land dies at 95. NDLEA nabbed Hong Kong France-born businessman at Abuja Airport for ingesting cocaine and heroin. You can find more details on page 4. Nigeria crawling but determined to change narrative, Tinubu assures. Reps propose life imprisonment for kidnapping and hostage taking. You can find more details on page 6. And we have President Bola Tinubu at the right with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz in Abuja yesterday. And that's all the news on Daily Sun newspaper.
Let's take a look at the Abuja Inquirer newspaper. OT tax NDDC on abandoned projects in Abia with the rider seek erosion control intervention. You can start reading on the front page and continue inside the paper. We have FCTA misses the IGR target for 2022, record 76 billion naira shortfall. You can find more inside the paper. Kaduna refinery to be ready by the fourth quarter of 2024. This is a report coming from the president or the federal government rather. So I believe Nigerians are keeping their fingers crossed, and we hope that that refinery will be revived and then job opportunities can be created for Nigerians. And that's all on the front page of the Abuja Inquirer newspaper.
On Sporting Sun newspaper, City claims Manchester bragging right, where we can see them trashing Man United 3-0. Owoniyi returns, plays for 31 minutes. The big story on the paper, Ballon d'Or, it's Messi or Haaland. We have Hazard, Giroud back, Messi to win, and I believe others are rooting for Haaland also. 2026 World Cup qualifiers, Leicester blocks Ndidi from joining Eagles. You can find details on page 6. Napoli identifies Gimenez as Osimhen's replacement. Moses Simon details how that saved career. Salah moves into top 20. Guardiola boasts Man City here to stay. We have Gundogan blast Barca attitude in El Clasico defeat. You can find more details on page 3. And we have Francis Ngannou alleges robbery against Tyson Fury, calls for a rematch. You can find more details on page 7, and that's all news on Sporting Sun newspaper.
All right, let's round it up with the National Economy newspaper with the big story talking about the free fall of the Naira. Why Naira may continue to depreciate, coming from the expert. You can find more on that story. We have breverages tax in Nigeria, a taste for health and revenue, more inside the paper. Why fintech disruption cannot turn traditional banks into VI. You can find that on page 10. Also, downside of the paper, we have the implication of the CBN lifting of restriction of the 73 items, where we see the rest are also called the CBN govern on that. You can find more on page 15. We also have the currency buying setting inflation rate 2022-2023 and the prices of commodity in the market. You can do well to grab the paper and read more detail for our business lovers and to everybody who cares to know the reason why the naira may continue to depreciate. And that's all on national economy and also how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you, Rachel, for doing this. Thank you to our callers who called on the program this morning, and thank you to our viewers and supporters and every other person who have been a lover of Equa Television. Until we come again, to have a better day ahead.